Indecisive outcomes often demand a rematch, and sometimes those rematches can play out a couple of different ways. One way, revenge. You solidify the outcome. That's what Magomed Ankalaev did to Johnny Walker here in the rematch at UFC Vegas 84. But then again, you have a rematch that doesn't quite fulfill its prophecy. Manel caught Matheus Nicolau, fight scrapped, caught missed a weight. We have a lot to talk about that transpired this weekend, and oh, does it feel good to be back. First post show 2024. What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Bloody Water Podcast. I am your host, Derick G, and welcoming me, the 2023 head-to-head champion in a new setup, the Santa Fe Bomber, AJ, brother. Hey, listen, Magomed Ankalaev, he still keeps his reigns as the dark horse to be the next light heavyweight champion. There was a lot of riffraff when you have the biggest knock coming to you, a draw against Jan Blachowicz, and next thing you know, Johnny Walker's supposed to beat him. What were your thoughts? Did we solidify what this outcome was?
Oh, absolutely, Derick. Absolutely. Especially with the end of the outcome or the end of the fight. When one guy doesn't really want to fight back because he just got cracked in the nose, absolutely solidified it. I'm glad none of the shenanigans played out too crazy like they did in the first fight. But I think, man, Magomed put himself back in a serious position to move up, not necessarily be the dark horse anymore. Getting a spotlight towards his name. Derick, how'd you think of the fights?
I thought that the fights were awesome, man. It felt good. We were on a hot trajectory starting off in the prelims, slowed down a little bit, but then the main card brought us back to where we needed to be. Most important thing that we're going to be discussing right now and a little bit later is, of course, the implications, right? Magomed Ankalaev is already in talks to fight Alex Ferreira for the light heavyweight championship, but more importantly, he's kind of trying to do a gentleman's agreement where he says, hey, listen, bro, Kevin Holland style, I'm not going to take you down. If we fight, it's all stand up, baby. So we're going to talk about all of that good stuff, main card recap, prelim Pourover, the whole nine. But before we do that, folks, hit that subscribe button, smash it, why don't you? We're 3 subscribers away from 800 strong. Now, I don't know about you, but once upon a time, this started off as a passion project right here that me and AJ were doing. There were 0 subscribers. We didn't know what we was doing. 800 strong right here. We got to celebrate, but we can't do it yet until we get those 3 extra subscribers. So smash that subscription button. You already know what time it is. All right, AJ, you see the scoreboard below. Hasn't quite changed from 0-0, right? It's 2-2 to 2-2, right? So we started off not where we wanted to be, 50% in terms of overall accuracy. We're going to be cleaning that up next week. But of course, we need to jump into what's the extra qualifier, the prop recap, baby. So pull up the screen. Let's look at everything as a whole right here, man. I hit on my prop good start to the week, on the prop lock of the week, I guess you could say. You were very close, AJ. You were close, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more. I said Taylor Lapilus, man. Those French guys, no slouches. All right, folks, again, Manel Cop and Matheus Nicolau, their fight got scrapped. Cop missed weight by 3.5 pounds, so that was not on the board. Ricky Simone, Gabriel Benitez. Sometimes, AJ, you take a flyer, and it looks like we took the wrong flyer on this card. Mario Bautista, he was the flyer that we needed to take, but it's okay. Give me some thoughts right here on the prop lock of the week. Waldo Cortes-Acosta was the biggest smash spot that you could hit, plus 300 right there, folks. Starting the year off strong, but more importantly, it's just about identifying patterns in the game and looking at opponent, looking at just how tough they are. Given Farid Basharat and Taylor Lapilus went to the distance, but Basharat literally almost submitted him in the end of the fight. How hard were you holding on to that one, bro?
Derick, I was absolutely crushed, brother. Absolutely crushed. Because like you said, a hair away from actually getting it done. And looking, throughout the entire fight, I was a little nervous about it because you're right. Taylor Lapilus was looking strong. And sure enough, man, right there sitting on the edge of my seat doesn't come to fruition, but I do like your pick, man. That prop lock was extremely smart because Waldo Cortes-Acosta never looked like he was faltering in that decision. You know, always kept the feet moving, always kept looking good. It was a great pick by you. I'm a little upset at myself, or at least a little upset in the way it unfolded for my prop lock, but I was right there, folks. Get ready because better picks are coming, but this was a close one for sure.
But folks, listen, if you followed AJ's logic, then Farid Basharat was never in doubt of really losing that fight. It was just a matter of could he get it done in the distance, which he almost did. So the logic is we're there. So, you know, we just clean it up a little bit, but it's okay. First card of the year. So, folks, clearly, you just checked on the accountability mirror. This is our Bloody Water Podcast accountability mirror. Shout out to David Goggins. If you won yourself some money, comment below. Let us know the picks that you rocked with, and then subscribe and tell a friend to tell a friend. This is your favorite fighter's favorite fight show after all. All right, AJ, now let's move on to what is important, and that is, of course, the main
Have you seen that replay,
card.
buddy? Your head was bouncing around like like a pinball machine.
Time for some main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ. So folks, this is going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit condensed, given that there was only 4 fights. So we're going to go from the top, take it to the bottom. And AJ, let's go ahead and let's get started, man. Magomed Ankalaev gets the TKO finish over Johnny Walker. So first, let me eat a little bit of crow right here. I was heavily questioning minus 255 TKO Ankalaev over Walker. I don't know if standing with him is going to be the correct approach that you want to take. You're having some success, taking him down and kind of wrapping him up that way. Why not repeat that? Well, AJ, that was unnecessary. He didn't need that whatsoever. Instead, cracked him with a big right in the nose, and Johnny Walker faltered. My question to you is Johnny Walker's game set up to be a point fighter? Like, after we saw this, like, his game doesn't really have the tools, I would say, to set him up to say, all right, I'm going to be skirting back against the cage, pop out the jab. I think he's more of an explosive counter striker, big shot coming. What do you think?
Absolutely, Derick. Absolutely. The way he fights definitely seems to be more of that explosive counter striker. The question starts to be begged, like, how do we get Johnny Walker from just the chaotic brawler to be able to set traps and play the game to be able to be that explosive counter striker? Because you can't just do it from the jump. You need to be able to set those traps, play those games to draw people in to be able to close those angles. But Johnny Walker, I mean, from what I liked most about this fight from Johnny Walker, he was spamming those leg kicks. He was looking fast. He was throwing the funky stuff out there intermittently, not doing it in excess, to keep Magomed on his toes. But Magomed, he was not even a half step behind. He was in pace with Johnny Walker on the leg kicks, cutting off angles, looking good, staying solid, staying, composed and poised, and really being able to attack good, man. Magomed played this game exactly right, not even needing to take this fight to the ground. Do you see Johnny Walker being able to be that trap setter of sorts, Derick, or is this just he needs to be like a chaos from the jump, get the fight over with and done?
I'm always going to say that the chaos is going to be helpful, right? Johnny Walker, the best trait about him is his unpredictability. You don't know what's coming at what point, but the reality is when he's walking you down or he's making his opponent, come to him, and he's standing solid ground, blasting out those leg kicks, hitting with a big counter, and just making it really dangerous to enter that boxing range. That puts him in a great spot. But you saw a lot of his game was dictated by long kicks, long rangey stuff, right? Instead of I'm going to pop that jab into your face, I'm going to follow it with a big right hand. You saw a lot of big, like, crazy spinning back fists, you know what I mean? Like, a lot of big motions, and that's what they kept saying. I think it was Paul Felder specifically. He kept noting, he was all like, dude, I love it, but you got to slow down because this is a 5-round fight, and you're letting a lot of telegraphed big shots come out of nowhere, and Magomed Ankalaev is not a guy who's really going to fall victim to those traps. So I think the reality is going to be that Magomed, in this fight, there's a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, clearly, given the animosity between the two. I felt, like I had said in the pre-show, that he came out and tried to prove a point. Did you see that in the fight?
Oh, absolutely, Derick. That's why I giggled a little bit when you said there was some animosity in the fight, because you could see from Jump Street, literally from minute one, they were tense, they were tension. Even with the low kick that Magomed delivered, Johnny Walker, you could tell he was upset. He was pointing. He was, there's some fouls to be had, or there's some fouls to be inexcused from the first fight. Mm-hmm. So that tension from there definitely carried over. I was glad to see they made friends and shook hands at the end, but there was a little heat for sure.
Yeah, so this is going to be really my question when it comes down to just like this matchup right here. Again, Magomed Ankalaev, you get the draw against Jan Blachowicz, you got your legs beat up, then you get this no contest against Johnny Walker. And now the public, because of the recency bias that MMA fans have, right, the public starts spouting, oh, Johnny Walker, he's probably going to knock out Ankalaev, right? Like, this number 7 dude now has a shot against the number 3 dark horse who's just been smashing everybody. Again, last loss was against Paul Craig, only loss of his career. That was so long ago. So now has he, like, rewritten the record to say, y'all must have forgot, hey, Alex Paeta, I'm coming for you, bro. I'm ready for the title shot. Give me the title shot or give me nothing. What do you think?
As much as I'm sure the camp of Magomed Ankalaev wants that and wants that narrative to be written, Derick, I still feel like a lot of people, especially with the trajectory we've seen Johnny Walker's career be, he never was the guy who everybody was claiming was going to get the title. He was always the wild man. So I feel like a lot of people now, they're going to say, well, you should have beat Johnny Walker. He's lower than you. He's never been to that elite level, if you will. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I do think the narrative out there by the media will portray that and not give Ankalaev the credit he deserves in this fight. Unfortunately, as unfortunate that is, I don't see the media being really pushing the Ankalaev narrative that he's the new killer back on the train tracks and ready to go for Paeta. Do you see it that way, Derek?
No, man, you're right. The unfortunate reality of the lose-lose that was this rematch against Johnny Walker, man. So he just put him in a position where he kind of wasted a little bit of time in the span of his title run that he's trying to go on, and he had to prove a point. But if he would have decisioned Johnny Walker, we'd be having a much different conversation. The fact that he got him out of there 2 rounds, knocked him out, said, "Oh, you're the big bad striker. All right, I'll show you about that." I thought that was very impressive, man. That just adds to the resume of a Magomed Ankalaev. So I'm excited. Again, they're already talking about lining him up against Alex Paeta for the light heavyweight championship. And then, folks, listen, this is something that if you were on this train, like, right on, shout out to you, drop a comment, let us know. But I've been saying for a long time here, if you're a Bloody Water podcast fan, like if you have been supporting this channel for a while, you know we have been high on Magomed Ankalaev, and you should have already put a future bet on him being a champion at some point. 2024, I think that's the year. All right, AJ, with that being said, fantastic main event to kick off 2024. But let's move on to a timeless fight right here. A10 Jim Miller, dude, this guy just doesn't stop, man. Like, so Timeless needs to be the new nickname. Jim Timeless Miller, or the Timeless Jim Miller. And the reason why is because he came out against Magomed Benitez, right? We said, this is our dog pick right here. Mowgli, he's got some fantastic striking. I think that he can outpace him in the first round. Well, guess what, man? This dude, Jim Miller, came out fighting the way that I thought Gabriel Benitez was going to fight. Had Gabriel Benitez on his back foot, leg chewed up from leg kicks. And I was like, yo, what is going on here? Were you surprised to see the conviction in Jim Miller when he walked forward and said, I'm going to bring it to you, and then when I'm comfortable, I'm going to wrestle you, and I'm going to dictate this fight wherever I want it to go? What did you think?
I guess to answer your question, Derek, was I surprised to see the conviction in Jim Miller? No, not at all, because there's nothing we've come to expect that out of Jim Miller. He's going to fight his heart out, and he's going to fight tooth and nail to get this done, and that's exactly what we saw. I was surprised to see the output and the performance, man. I definitely thought Gabriel Benitez was going to come out and be the one leading the dance, kicking legs, hurting people out there. Jim Miller showed up as an absolute dog, had everybody's mouths agape because he came to fight, brother. I was very impressed, very, very taken back by the performance Miller had. It looks like he's making it to UFC 300. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he came out more or less unscathed, right? Like, more or less. He was beat up. His face was showing some redness and all of that good stuff from the strikes of Gabriel Benitez, because Benitez was setting him up some really good straight shots, but it wasn't enough, right? He had more volume, too. He just had less efficiency, wasn't able to land as much. So I do think that Jim Miller, man, timeless guy, put on another impressive performance. Another one of those jaw-dropping ones, man, where you just said, wow, this guy refuses to quit. He is 40 years old, AJ. The man is 40 years old, refuses to quit. And my question to you is, now he's calling out Paul Felder, right? He's all like, give me the OG matches. Give me Matt Brown. Give me some of these guys, UFC 300. We love Jim Miller. He's a legend. But given we need to have 299 is already stacked to the gills, right? Some are saying that's the best card that will ever happen if all the fighters make it to the actual fight. UFC 300, a little less coveted. Do you think Jim Miller, that name Jim Miller, will be enough and have enough star power to actually make it on the UFC 300 fight card?
Have enough star power. That's the interesting caveat to there, Derek, because with the hardcores, absolutely. We're going to see a name Jim Miller on the docket. We're going to be very excited to watch him fight, but have enough star power to really be drawn in for the casuals and pushing ticket prices. That I don't really think so, unfortunately enough. But what I do think is with the acclaim that Jim Miller creates in the company, being a company man, always fight at UFC 100, 200, he's probably more than likely going to get a shot on the card. My question is, do you think it's going to be on the main event? Because probably not, unfortunately. I'd love to see it, but I just don't think the star power is going to be pushing for so much, if you will.
Not at all, dude. I don't think this is a card, though, that you complain that you're an OG and you're on the prelims. It kind of is what it is. It's like, they put Bo Nickel on the first fight of the card or something like that. Like, you just accept it. You're like, all right, the UFC 300, we made it. So, fantastic fight. But let's talk a little bit about the money perspective right here, man. If you think logically, you think, okay, Benitez is a striker. Jim Miller, we already knew that the takedown was going to be there, but can he even get to the takedown, or will he be overwhelmed? Clearly, that was not a problem. Submission is like the most likely outcome you would think realistically over the TKO. I know we didn't discuss it much in the pre-show, but when you see plus 400 submission hit round 3, How impressed were you? Like, were you like, oh man, this is impressive in terms of like, I can't believe he got it done? Or were you saying, I'm impressed that I didn't think of but putting plus 400 on the submission prop for Jim Miller? What, am I out of my mind? What do you think?
Definitely the latter, Derek, because even when the face crank was getting involved, I was like, man, no way is A10 Jim Miller about to submit Benitez right here. This isn't going to happen. Sure enough, man, with, a minute and a half left or whatever it was, gets the face crank in. I was blown away. It didn't even come to my mind that we were going to see this kind of performance out of Jim Miller. And admittedly, a little let down by my own self, but still very, very impressive that Jim Miller still has that in him, that dog in him to be able to get the fight done and not only outperform his opponent, but get to the point where he can finish him, solidify the win. Very impressive win for Jim Miller, man. Yeah, I didn't see it coming at all, to be honest with you, Derek.
You know what? Like I said, once he started getting the fight on the ground, it was almost like inevitable to happen. But one thing that I want to do really quickly right here, and this is not something that I normally do, but on the Bloody Water podcast, what we do is we'll kind of give out feelers to you guys and give you an idea. We'll talk overs, we'll talk unders, we'll talk about specific props. And there was one that I did hit on, and this is the overall, trajectory. So shout out to Jim Miller, but, let's kind of talk about the overall trajectory on the main card. 3-leg parlay that we hit all on the over 1.5, which we discussed a lot, AJ. And so tell me, because we kind of hit on all these. I said the first one was Josh Vance versus Felipe Bunez, right? We talked that on the prelim, good boxer. We hit over 1.5 on that one. Over 1.5 on the Cortes-Arlovsky fight right there. So that's the second leg. That was my decision though. So that, intuition, you got to just kind of take from what I'm giving you right there. And then the last one was going to be Ankalaev versus Walker. We hit the 3-leg parlay. It was all in all plus 325 on the odds, man. You throw in $10, you make a $42 payout right there, right? So you're making like $32 in profit. So when you see little stuff like that, right, or you see, for an example, let me see, just kind of like the decision props that we lay out. Do you think that we are given, and this is just like transparency, looking in the mirror while we're talking to you guys at the same time, AJ, do you think that we're giving enough straight out, like, here's the play right here, or are we leaving too much up to interpretation? Because the money is there if you really think about what we're saying in the overs and all that good stuff. But I want to know from you guys. Drop a comment and let us know if you want us to be a little more direct and outright with it. But if we hit the plays, we want you to hit the plays too. So AJ, what do you think? Do we need to be a little bit more on the nose?
Yeah, that's a great question, Derek, because I definitely see, like you said, the money's there, the value's there. Folks, if you are hitting those legs or hitting the over-unders, hitting anything we're saying right here, let us know if you want more of that, because I think that's a great value addition to that, because we're winning money over here, fine folks. So make sure that you're also putting it in. Like Derek's saying, he's in legs of parlays all day long. So make sure you jump in there, because we're mentioning it on the card, but I do think having that little bit of pinpoint accuracy, if you will, seeing the counter and actually exploiting it, I think that could come in handy.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll be a better counter striker on the next one, folks. Just know it's coming. But if you hit, you got to love it. And that's what we're talking about in this next one right here. Mario Bautista seized the moment against Ricky Simón. Unanimous decision. And AJ, again, not to toot our own horns, but did we not say, hey, listen, we're both backing Ricky Simón. This is the Bloody Water Podcast consensus pick, but I can never fault you to say plus 350 Mario Bautista. You have to cash in on that. We said that outright. We said that explicitly, correct?
Oh, absolutely, Derek. And this proved to why exactly we were saying this is a clone battle right here, man. Washing machine style. We laid this on out perfect.
And I would say, if we're talking about the actual like X's and O's of the fight right here, man, Ricky Simón, it was close. I thought that the fight was a little closer than the scorecard indicated. They gave it 30-27 for Mario Bautista. I thought it was a little closer than that. But I will say, everything that we said in the pre-show pretty much came to fruition. If Ricky Simón couldn't get the takedown, he looks a little too nervous on the feet versus Mario Bautista, who the commentary team was saying Ricky Simón was the superior striker. But we were saying, I think Bautista has the better hands all in all. He was working the body. He was making Simón work really hard anytime he came in for a shot. And ultimately, man, he just kind of outpaced him. He outpaced Ricky Simón, AJ. I mean, am I the only one taking aback here? Like, when does this happen? When does Ricky Simón get tired? And now we saw Mario Bautista is going to be entering the top 15. And the question that you have to ask yourself, ourselves, everybody, right? This is meta right here. Ricky Simón, man, is the time past him? Has his window, I wouldn't say closed, but has the window that he had that 5-fight win streak, some of those names were a little outdated that we had mentioned. This new breed's coming up. Is the window closed for him to make that run to a top 5 fight or something like that? Or is he ever perennially going to be top 15, top 20 fighter?
The window is shrinking. The window is shrinking, to say the least, Derek, because I never would have thought that Ricky Simón was going to look tired, look like he's gasping, look like he's taking extremely desperate shots. This was crazy, man. It didn't look like Ricky Simón lost like half a step or something. It just looked like he was having trouble breathing, which we never have seen in our entire Ricky Simón fight career. This is crazy to me. Blew my mind to see him really see that look of desperation of, oh shit, I might be down. I might be down 2 rounds. I might be down. I might be tired. Might be whatever going in, and having that look of exasperation in his face. It was kind of crazy, man. So yes, is the window closed? I don't think it's absolutely shut, especially for a dog like Ricky Simón that can pull out like a 3-fight win streak. But I do think it is closing, and it is closing fast with the talent that is approaching quickly.
Let's not forget that Ricky Simón, on paper, he does have a win and outpaced the machine, Merab Dvalishvili. Like, let's not forget that, right? So when you go from like that, right, and that was not even recently, like that was kind of out the way, to Mario Bautista just kind of putting it on him, not allowing him, never accepting the takedown. So kudos to him, right? But more importantly, saying when we stand, every time that you try to shoot, I'm going to get an underhook, and then I'm going to make you pay with hooks and then body shots every time. I thought it was a masterclass of a performance, and I thought that he really put himself on a spotlight right here. So I will apologize because I do believe I've misspelled Mario Batista's name right here. There's no U in that Mario, but shout out to you, man. You deserve all the respect, and now that you're a top 15 fighter, nobody's going to be misspelling your name anymore. Plus 350 decision prop. We said that there was a lot of value in that. We came up short as a Bloody Water Podcast consensus pick, so apologies about that one. But listen, in a fight that's this close, clones, you can never not hedge your bet in a spot like that. All right, AJ. To open us up, the curtain jerker of 2024 in terms of the main event, right, for the Bloody Water Podcast, Brunno Ferreira, he fulfilled the prophecy of the unfortunate reality, man. Sometimes, and I want your opinion on this. The commentary team said it themselves. They said, you know what, every fighter, and I think they were actually talking about Andrei Arlovski at this point, but it would maybe have been Phil Hawes. They said every fighter, at some point, your chin has an expiration date, meaning that you take so much trauma. Maybe you had a couple bad, vicious, like bad KO losses, right? It happened. It's life, right? You know, your brain takes so much trauma that it goes the Chuck Liddell route where it says, I'm going to save you from you. So when you get hit, instead of just letting you take it and like get all of this damage, I'm just going to turn off. I'm going to go to sleep. And then we're going to wake up and then we'll be all good and you can live a long, healthy life after that. But in terms of fight game, AJ doesn't quite work out that way. Phil Hawes, he got touched by Brunno Ferreira. He had an interesting game plan, which was let me stand with Brunno Ferreira. Even Ferreira was the one initiating takedowns. He got clipped right on the temple, and he went down. A couple extra follow-up shots for good measure. What were your thoughts?
Man, if folks, this is an interesting one, because if you've ever been clipped in the temple or clipped in any fight, you kind of get rung a little bit in your days and jazz, you know how hard it is to regain your composure from that imbalance that you just received. But Phil Hawes, going to your point about losing a little bit of the chin or the chin fading away a little bit, not necessarily having that granite in it anymore. That's what it kind of seemed like. Because don't get me wrong, Bautista, excuse me, not Bautista,
Brunno Ferreira.
There we go. Yeah. Brunno Ferreira. Thank you, Derek. Brunno Ferreira can crack with the best of them, has power on power on power. But he didn't really obliterate Phil Hawes, man. He just clipped him right on the temple. So I'm not saying, no knock on Hawes for going down with that, because it is a powerful shot on a precise location. But there were moments in that fight where you could just tell Phil Hawes was not comfortable getting hit anymore. He was looking for things. He was not necessarily looking for a way up, but looking for a way to get away from what was happening. And it's worrisome for Phil Hawes, especially being the fact that this guy used to just sit down, bite down on his mouthpiece, and throw power right back. But having this kind of inefficiency or instability in his chin makes it very, very worrisome. And I can definitely see what you're talking about in that lack, or that chin lacking a little bit now, because you can't go against guys with this kind of power and still continuously have this happen to you, man. It's not a good look.
What do you think about the game plan? This was kind of a battle of wrestling versus judo, right? Ferreira in the judo corner, Phil Hawes in the wrestling corner, I believe. And Phil Hawes shot no takedowns, but he did have to defend a few against Ferreira. There was a couple of dogfight positions right there. But ultimately, man, like, you stand with a dude who is known to just knock out everybody. Literally, all of his wins, I'm pretty sure, are by knockout. Or maybe he has like one decision right there. But the point is, what did you think about the game plan?
I didn't like it one bit, Derek. I didn't like it at all. Loved it for Brunno Ferreira. The guy's trying to get at you. Once he gets close, you throw the judo, get into the ground, get back up, start brawling again. Love that for Brunno Ferreira. For Phil Hawes, it made it very interesting to see why you couldn't, when the guy's rushing you down, cut an angle, get to the hips, or any sort of anything to advance your own position in this one. Because that's where I was going with when I was saying Phil Hawes, it looked like he was faltering a little bit. It looked, you could tell he was in danger and not necessarily putting in his own game plan. He was reacting to the situation that was occurring, and it's always a scary look for a fighter.
Well, when you have a Ferreira doing one of your favorite strategies where, oh, you want to shoot? I'm going to give you something up the middle, right? Knees up the middle, uppercuts, right? Flying knee. I'm going to warn you, if you shoot, you're going to be, something's coming, you know what I mean? So I thought that this was a really good get-back performance by Brunno Ferreira. But more importantly, I did kind of worry because I felt like if he wasn't able to secure that knockout shot that he did, he looked like he was a little tired at the end of that first round. And I'm just like, man, live by the sword, die by the sword, but it's a dangerous game to play. At the end of the day, though, man, listen, you can't sit there and ponder on the what-ifs of the world. Brunno Ferreira via knockout to start off 2024. Big win. We cashed in on that Bloody Water Podcast consensus pick. And with that being said, folks, that is your main card breakdown. But we have some really, really interesting prelims that we want to cover. We want to give you a recap of the sleepers that we provided for you. Those were some good ones, by the way. But before we get into that, of course, drop a like, subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Share this with your fam. Share this with all of the fight fans that you know and help build the community. All right, AJ, let's move on over to that prelim pour-over right here. So let's go ahead and I want to do this. We're going to do it a little bit differently this time. I'm going to pull up the screen. I'm going to show a couple of the different fights that we had available. And I want you, AJ, to tell me a little bit about the notable ones. What stood out to you on this prelim card? So now that we got it up right here, let's scroll down and let's kind of take it from the jump, man. Give me a fight that stood out to you and I'll move on over to it.
The first one for me, Derek, Nicholas Mota versus Tom Nolan. Like, we were talking about it on the pre-show. Nicholas Mota, anytime he steps into the cage, this dude is an absolute gangster. Proves it with a 1:03 knockout, man. This was what do you think? I mean, is this the performance we've come to expect out of Nicholas Mota, or was Tom Nolan just not up to the performance that night and it ends up going against him? What do you think?
First and foremost, folks, this was my sleeper for you guys. You're welcome. I bring you nothing but violence right here. But you can see it all lined up. You have a veteran in Nicholas Mota, fought some really good guys. Some of them he won, some of them he lost. In his last fight, he says, hey, I couldn't go the way I wanted to. It was the last fight on my contract. I worked so hard to get here to the UFC. I didn't want to lose out on this opportunity. Luckily, no contest. That should have been a loss, but no contest gives him this opportunity against a young stud, not tested in the UFC, talking a crazy gang of shit right here, basically saying, I'm going to annihilate this fool, da-da-da-da-da. So Mota does the thing that he does best, man. He says, oh, you want to dictate your long-rangey game plan? You got a Corey Sandhagen style, like body type, all that? I'm going to walk up and I'm going to crack you. How about that? You know what I mean? You're not doing that long-rangey stuff against me. I'm getting inside. I'm putting you down. Tom Nolan's chin couldn't handle the adversity that came his way, and he got humbled. And this is what I love, because I think that we're going to see a rejuvenated, revamped Tom Nolan who's going to be coming out guns a-blazing. But I think we're seeing the same thing for Nicholas Mota. We know all he has to do is land. Don't load up too much, but if you can land, you're going to get the job done, and he has scary power for a 155-pound fighter right there. He's got that Jim Miller power where he just hits you, and you're like, yo, what happened right there? Or maybe I should give it more akin to Josh Emmett at 145, you know what I mean? That scary power. But I thought this was fantastic. Clearly, you can tell I have a lot of thoughts here on my sleeper. You have any other ones on this one?
I just love seeing Nicholas Mota get to his where he's comfortable in there and brawling, man. Once he sees an opportunity to present himself, he takes advantage of it. I love seeing Nicholas Mota brawl, and I also love seeing him when he's a little bit more technical of a fighter. Love this fight, Derek. I was just looking up on the next one because you want to talk about rangy strikers going in there and not working out. I want to talk about my sleeper next up, Derek, and I'm glad you already read my mind. You got it on the screen. John Silva versus Weston Wilson. Man, I want to talk about the power that Silva looked beautiful. And I was mentioning in the beginning, that long lankiness of Weston Wilson can be his detriment because he got pieced up in this fight. Derek, what was your thoughts?
Let's talk about the walkout first, bro, before we talk about anything else. John Silva came in like the Undertaker, longest walkout, staring into the camera, and basically coming in like, hey, he had said it in the post show, man. He was like, this was all predetermined, man. This was planned. We were ready for this. This is the outcome we knew that was going to happen. And again, AJ, I mean, kudos, because this was the ass whooping of a lifetime that made it a sleeper. But I said, you're a minus 800 favorite. How is this going to be a sleeper? Like, I got to figure this out. Weston Wilson, though, has a little more durable of a chin than we thought. But I think that this was a showcase bout. This was an annihilation. This was almost a sentencing, right? Like, Weston Wilson did something to somebody, to one of the matchmakers, and they said, oh, okay, I can't do nothing to you, but I'm going to match you up with this guy, and you're in a world of hurt. So I thought John Silva did everything that pretty much everybody expected him to. We know this is the type of fighter that he is in terms of the ability to just deliver pain and punishment. And for Weston Wilson, I don't know, man. What do you say in a matchup like this, man? You come into the UFC, doesn't quite look at this point UFC ready given the competition that he's faced. Is this enough of a standout victory for John Silva, given that this was a brutalization and he could not get that Sean O'Malley one hitter quitter walk off that I think he was looking for?
Was it enough for John Silva? No, I don't think so, Derick, especially because of the ass whooping he put on. And unfortunately for Weston Wilson, I mean, his chin was so durable to a detriment because you're right, he got beat up pretty good. But for John Silva going forward, I do think this was one of those fights where it's you're such a high favorite that everyone's like, yeah, you should have won. But like you said, you should have knocked him out clean, cold, and went out, cashed your check, and glid on out, But for John Silva, I think what this sets him up for is one of those performances that now everybody knows he's scary. So his next fight's going to be very, very challenging. But still, if he's able to perform or have this kind of performance again, he's going to really solidify himself. And that's where we're going to see the trains start really moving for John Silva going forward.
Well, listen, man, he's putting on for the fighting nerds, barking at the camera after the fight on some Yoel Romero hype. You better bring it in this next fight, brother, whatever they match him up with. But shout out to John Silva. All right. Give me another one that stood out to you. And if you don't got one,
man,
I
Marcus
got one.
McGee versus Gaston Bolaños. Yeah, how can you not, bro? Look at Marcus McGee. This guy brings the fight all the time. Every time we want to see a toe-to-toe, if you will, like somebody who's never going to back down and get to the scrap. Marcus McGee showed up, and to his credit, man, Gaston Bolaños also did not falter too early. He put up a damn good fight for what he could. What was your thoughts on this fight, Derick?
Get Marcus McGee in front of a crowd immediately. Stop letting him fight at the Apex, man. Get this man in front of a sold-out arena because this dude brings it 100%. Who in this division is standing toe-to-toe with you, is willing to choke you out, willing to stand and trade? It doesn't really matter. Like, who is going to that level? And just saying, like, in the beginning, right, he was doing the counter shots on Gaston and he was just winging big hooks, but he was letting him know every time you come in, you're going to pay. I'm not going to just sit here and allow you to walk me down and do any of that nonsense. Before you know it, he broke Gaston Bolaños, man. He overwhelmed him with his pace, overwhelmed him with his accuracy, and more importantly, when he touched him, he hurt him. So even though he touched him and then Bolaños tried to showboat it off a little bit, oh, we good, whatever, it's like, yo, you need to regain that composure, homie, because what ended up happening, he got taken out in the second round. So Marcus McGee, this dude, what a way to start off your UFC career. Let's just say that. What a way to start off your UFC career. If you did not already have a spotlight on him in 2023, this is the year that I think he's really going to open up some fans' eyes. So he wasn't our sleeper. This could have been a sleeper. There was a lot of really good fights on the prelims, but he is definitely a sleeper that you need to watch out for. Now, AJ, this is the sad reality of the fruition that came to be that I had mentioned to you. Matthew Semelsberger versus Preston Parsons. We know Semelsberger, even though he cut that glorious mullet of his, has all of the skill, all of the power in the world. But what did I tell you? He better stay off his back. Well, that's Preston Parsons the game, but it's pressure for a reason. What do you do? Puts him on his back, beats him up, gets to the punch first, overwhelmed him. And Semelsberger now is coming out with some pre-fight stuff that basically was saying, hey, haven't really been living exactly as a professional fighter in terms of like the discipline that you should have. My gym's an hour away. I use that as an excuse to not train. What is happening to the hype of Semi the Jedi, man? Because this dude went from being one of those budding prospects turning to a contender to now we can't quite put it together. We're a little too one-dimensional. What do you think?
That's a good question, Derick, because like what was the catalyst? I was going to joke around and say, once you cut the power mullet, everything's gone. He's like, I forget the myth of the guy with the hair. But either way, Derek, what was the catalyst that really set Semelsberger back? Because you're right, he came into the UFC, man, hype Jedi, semi the Jedi, man. We're hyping him up from the jump, and one of the big things, I forget who knocked him out. Was it Jim Miller or was it? I forget who knocked out Semelsberger like 2 or 3 years ago, and that kind of changed the trajectory of his kind of performance, man.
I mean, Medic
Was it
just
Udo's
knocked him
Medic?
out.
No.
Yeah, he did.
It might have been
That
the
just
Medic
happened.
fight.
That was it. All the other fights have been good fights, man. They've all been decisions.
Because it might have been, it maybe not have been a knockout. It might have been that Alex Morono decision loss that kind of put it to him. Because before that, he was really catching some steam, really going forward. But maybe you might be able to determine a moment, Derek, because it seems like there was a switch that happened in Semi the Jedi, where he went from just this pulverizer to now competing at the same level of his opponent. No longer outscoring him, no longer outclassing him, no longer being that dominable force. Now he's kind of in the mix, if you will, and that's where I see maybe it's a confidence thing, maybe it's a composure thing, but something there has kind of started to mix where Semelsberger doesn't have that steam truck mentality, if you will, anymore. Can you think of any moment that kind of happened, or are you kind of at a loss too?
No, realistically, for me, and I know this is like a cheater answer because this is the start of the losing skid, but I thought it was the Jeremiah Wells fight, right? Because he 16-second knockout Jason Witt. You lose the unanimous to Chaos Williams, which was a close fight, but it was, Chaos edged it out. You get another first-round knockout. You beat AJ Fletcher, which is a fantastic wrestler. So it's like, all right, cool. You lose the decision. You get back against Jake Matthews. So you just see some inconsistency. And then when Jeremiah Wells just put it on him, right? And there was the knockdown too, but he just overdid him. I don't know the right word to use. I think that was the start right there. It was a split decision loss, but then you get knocked out by Medic, and then you get decision by Parsons. But I think that really set up the game plan to say, like, hey, listen, you got a guy like this, you need to take him down, man. Don't let him get that big power off. So I think Semelsberger has a lot of promise. You just got to shore up the takedown defense, man. Easier said than done, especially when you got a guy like Preston Parsons who's putting it on you in total strikes, right? Significant as well. 47-28, and took you down 7 times of 11, which is like, bro, look at that accuracy. That's 64%. That's pretty fucking impressive. So yeah, with that being said, man, hopefully we can get on a get right train for Semelsberger, but Preston Parsons was the victor there. And then this got moved to the main card, but let's just give it another quick breakdown, man. I said it, right? I think I almost gave the perfect description of this fight. Waldo Cortes-Acosta coming off of a knockout. We know he's a decision guy. Andrei Arlovsky is an old man in the heavyweight division, but he's always going to overperform to the expectations, which is going to lead to a decision outcome. Now, we got a decision, but this was ugly, bro. This was ugly, AJ. Cortes-Acosta, showboating. I don't know where the weird animosity came from these guys where they were beefing, but it's not a great look to get cracked and then be like, in the cage doing the whole thing, and then on top of that, you're showboating on like a 44-year-old dude who you like hardly decisioned, bro. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta really hurt him. You gotta make him feel like, oh, I'm scared. I don't want to fight this guy again. I feel like Andrei Arlovsky is like, if I see you in the parking lot, like, we're gonna fight again, bro. So I thought that Salsa Boy, it was a weird temperament thing. I don't know what happened right here, and I don't think this does a lot for his stock, but I love the outcome. So what'd you think?
Love the outcome. I mean, it was a classic Salsa Boy performance, even though, like you said, you weren't really stunning the guy, but you were still stunning on him. You were still dancing a little bit, trying to build up the ego, kind of trying to drum up the chaos that could be, or the storyline, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, this wasn't one of those fights where you think like, all right, some young cat's going to come in here and fight an old 40 plus year old dude. Didn't look that way, man. Andrei Arlovsky stood toe to toe. I mean, I thought it was a lot closer of a decision than actually was the outcome. But at the end of the day, the right guy won the fight. Waldo Cortes-Acosta did win the fight. He outperformed. But you're right. I don't think the showboating was deserved, or there was no kind of damage that needed to be having the animosity that was. I think Andrei Arlovsky is just a grumpy old man that can kind of tell he's on the decline. And as much as it hurts me to say that, because I'm a huge Pitbull fan, it seems to be he just doesn't have that spark, or that even in what was the last fight we saw where he got it was like a quick knockout or quick submission. I forget the last. It was like 2 fights ago from Andrei Arlovsky where he had the stunning performance. We were telling him, the Father Time's never dead with Andrei Arlovsky. Do you remember the fight? Was it your boy Brendan Allen?
Let's see, Brendan Allen. Come on, bro. This is heavyweight.
No, who was it?
Dontel Mays,
No,
Rogerio de
he had a
Lima,
big win.
Jake
It might have
Collier,
been
Jared Vandera,
maybe I'm thinking something because he lost to Tom Aspinall.
Tanner Boser.
It was after the Tom Aspinall fight. He had a comeback. You know, we all thought he was going to be losing after that.
It was this, bro. He had coming off this nasty losing streak, right? And then came back and he beat Tanner Boser. And we were all like, oh my God, Andrei Arlovsky is still alive. But dog, that was 2020, man. That was 4 years ago.
4 years ago. Yeah. It's just, you can see the look right here. 3 losses against not the A-list of fighters. I think this is a rough one for Andrei Arlovsky. Like you said, Derek, a little sloppy.
Yeah. And we were even talking for a second, bro. We were saying Andrei Arlovsky, I think he actually made it to top 15. Like he was 15th ranked in the world, man, after that 5-5 losing streak. So listen, folks, that is your prelim pour-over. Clearly a lot of stuff going on in the UFC, and this is going to be a very fruitful, busy year to come. But, you know, we have to do the most important thing, and we have to go down on a rankings review. So, AJ, let's talk a little rankings review. There's really only one weight class that we need to be discussing here today. And that's going to be the most prevalent one. It's the light heavyweight division. So let's jump into it. Light heavyweight right here. As you're going to see, folks, our personal rankings. You can see on the left, UFC's rankings, middle, my rankings, far right, that'll be AJ's rankings. Me and AJ have not updated our rankings since the beginning of December. But given that there really hasn't been much action in December, it's all good. Let's talk about the consensus rankings right here. Paeta, he's the champion. Jamal Hill, wild card, not quite sure when he's going to be ready to come back to fight competition. Yuri Prochazka is already matched up with Alexander Rakic. Jan Blachowicz, not quite sure what he's doing right here, but we do have that guy at number 3, Magomed Ankalaev, who theoretically should be lined up next to fight Alex Paeta. Johnny Walker, and he's still going to be in the middle, no man's land, kind of the light heavyweight division. But it's really interesting to me because we have a couple of new players, not quite new players, right? But like the one new player, Azamat Murzakanov, right? Kind of at the tail end of number 15. Everybody else, it's the same song and dance, man. The only people that I feel really confident that have a shot at making any potential run that are in that mix of like 5 to 12, it's really Khalil Roundtree. He's the only guy that gives me that level of confidence of like, you can make a little bit of a run. Let's see what you can do. But everybody else, man, Rakic coming off the injury, we just need to see. Everyone's matched up. What do you think about the lay of the land in the light heavyweight division? And the question will be, this is my big question to you. Will it, and if the answer is yes to will it, then how many times will the belt change hands in the light heavyweight division in 2024?
Yeah, Derek, that leads in perfectly what I was thinking about this division, because will it change hands? Yes. How many times in 2024? I'm thinking like 3, man, because you're right. What comes to my mind when I'm thinking about this division, it's not necessarily stagnant yet because we've seen some moving, some shaking, especially in the upper tiers of it. But the vast majority, 70% of the division, not much has happened. It's the same movers and the same shakers that have kind of jumped up and changed spots with each other. Not much is going on. Who's going to be the person that really comes in here and just changes the landscape for themselves and gets to the belt, and gets to the top 5 and really starts to show that the new classes arrived in the light heavyweight division and they're really going for it? I like the Khalil Roundtree. I mean, if we can see Azamat Murzakanov come back, or even Carlos Olberg, or somewhere in there, there's kind of a mix 'em up. But I do think at least now that top 5, top 6, 7 around there, those are going to be the guys that are competing at least for the next couple months, half a year maybe or so. But I'm very interested to see when one of these new guys comes into the mix, one of the, like you said, the Mirzakanovs, the Olbergs, somebody that we're not seeing out of nowhere come in, have a big performance and really start, laying the land out, if you will. And then we're going to start seeing that belt change hands, start moving and shaking. And that's what I'm excited for, because we saw Ferreira come in and just shake up the landscape and get to the belt right away. Who's going to be the next one that can do that, especially because in this division, there's a lot of guys that have stayed here for so long because they're not fighting, they're not staying active. So who's going to make that jump, if you will? Who do you think, Derek? I mean, we talked about Murzakanov, we talked about a couple others, but do you see anybody specific that's going to shake up the division?
That's going to shake up the division. I know, man. I think that this is going to be more or less the same song and dance until a lot of these guys end up retiring, honestly, man. Jamal Hill, Yuri Prochazka, Magomed Ankalaev, and potentially Alexander Rakic. That's just not including the champion, Alex Paeta. I think these are the guys that have the stranglehold on the division. And until somebody new and improved just kind of comes out of nowhere, I think that's what we're going to be looking at. So with that being said, that is your rankings review. First one of 2024. You got to love it. So folks, we made it to the outro. So the important thing to note here is that we got off to a 50-50 start. That means that in this 2024, the 4th season of the Bloody Water Podcast head-to-head tournament competition, right? It's 0-0. We start next week and somebody's looking to get out to an early edge. So let's do a quick recount. AJ, you got 1 title. I got 2 titles. You have an opportunity to tie us up 2-2 this year, but I have an opportunity. I want to be Triple D. I'm going to say it all year long. That's the game plan. That's the focus. That's the goal. That's what we're working towards. But if there's anything we're working towards, AJ, I think it's fair to say we want to put as much money in your pocket as possible. In return, do us a favor. Smash the subscribe button. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And more importantly, tune in next Friday for the Bloody Water Podcast preview show, UFC 297, I believe. Oh man, it comes so quick. AJ, get us out of here.
Derick said it best, folks. The main goal right here is to put money in your pockets. Yes, we like talking about this. Yes, we like breaking it down. Yes, I like gold shiny belts behind me, but what makes me feel better is when you find folks say, man, these guys want me a bunch of money out here week in and week out. You know, we're giving you the best breakdowns possible. You just need to share it with your friends, send it on over, turn this medium-sized militia into an army that can raid the entire everywhere, all over the place, whatever it is. Either way, we're happy to see it. It's going to be a fun one next week. I'm excited to break it down. Let's get into it.
All right, folks, that's it for us. Catch us next week on Friday for the preview show. Until next time, peace.